All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And I'm gonna be going into a part two of this. I did the first part yesterday of Isaiah the 14th chapter, and so Lord willing, we can get into the second part today. So picking up from where we left off, this is the book of Isaiah chapter 14, verse 13. All right, and it says here, "For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north." Now, this is dealing with Esau, right? And once again, Esau basically speaking in his pride, which goes into the God complex that he has, right? A couple of precepts, or a precept for this would be the book of Second Thessalonians, the second chapter. All right, it goes into it describes within the first half. All right, it describes pretty much the same thing it's talking about here, concerning Esau and his burning desire to be the Most High, or to be like God. So as it says, "Thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven," and that's their inward thought. Okay, "I will exalt my throne above the stars of God." Now, the stars of God are the Israelites. Okay, and a precept for this is let's see. I think there might be one in the book of Daniel, the 8th chapter, or maybe my mind is deceiving me, but only one way to find out. Let's see. There we go. This is Daniel chapter 8, verse 9. It says, "And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great." Now, Daniel the 8th chapter predominantly is going into, it starts off with the wars between the Greeks and the Achaemenid Empire, aka the Persians, and it describes them as, using animals, right, or beasts. So it describes the Greeks as the he-goat with the horn between its eyes, and then it describes the Achaemenid Empire, or the Medo-Persian Empire, as the ram with two horns. So and as you keep on reading, it goes past that a bit, and it starts to continue on into the Greek, further into the Greek history, and then it really focuses on Antiochus Epiphanes. He's the little horn here in Daniel, the 8th chapter. Okay, so that's what we're reading of right now. So this is Daniel chapter 8, verse 9. It says, "And out of one of them," and this one of them is dealing with, when you read up in the 8th verse, "Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong." So the he-goat being the Grecian Empire, it waxed very great, right? They came up into power, I believe, somewhere around 336 BC or so. They conquered in about, being led by Alexander, they conquered in about 12 years or so, all the way from Macedon to the Indus Valley or so. Let's see, Greek or Grecian Empire, and that's a lot of territory to conquer in that span of time. So here's a picture. Let me zoom in on this. There you go. So as you can see here, they conquered a lot. All right, they had Macedon, Cyrene, right, Egypt, Kol, Syria, which in the Hebrew is Kal, Syria, meaning all Syria, Asia Minor, all the way up into Mesopotamia, all the way up into the east, all the way up, all the way here, right, the Indus River, and so on and so forth, bordering India. So that's why it says that the he-goat waxed very great, right? They conquered a lot. And when he was strong, so when they reached the zenith, or the epic of their kingdom, the great horn was broken, which the great horn was Alexander, and him being broken meaning he died. And for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven, meaning in his stead, after he died, the next main rulers that took over, which this happened over a period of time because there were different wars between the different generals striving for land and control. But at the end of it, the four notable ones that were left were um, Ptolemy, which had Egypt. Okay, he had this part Egypt south. He also had parts of Cyprus. You had Seleucus, which had pretty much a large chunk of the east, Mesopotamia, all the way into part of Asia Minor. And then you had Lysimachus, which I believe Lysimachus also had a portion of Asia Minor as well as Thrace and Macedon. And then you had uh, what's this last guy's name? Cassander, right? I believe that was he had here. Now I think Cassander was actually, when you look it up, let's see, four generals of Alexander. I think Cassander actually might have come after. Yeah, so you have here, now they have Ptolemy, Cassander, Seleucus, and Antigonus. Maybe I can pull up this image here. One of these has those that were ruling that region. But as you can see, Ptolemy had the south, you had Seleucus, which had mainly the east, and then in the northwest and southwest, you had Lysimachus and Cassander. I think one of them, either Cassander, I think it was Cassander. His father was the one that reigned before him, and then he came up in there. See if I can find that. Yeah, Antipater. Let's see. Yeah, see, it says here, Antipater was a Macedonian general and statesman under the successive kingship of Philip II of Macedon and his son Alexander the Great. In the wake of the collapse of the Aegean house, or Slakia of the Argead house, his son Cassander would eventually come to rule Macedonia as a king in his own right. So he basically came up in there and took over after his father. But anyway, these are the four generals, right? Not to get distracted. Coming back to Daniel 8. So when it says towards the four, where we at? Towards the four winds of heaven, that's going into the different directions in which they ruled, right? They didn't all rule in one area. Ptolemy would be more south, Seleucus would be more east, and Lysimachus and Cassander would be more west. And it says here, and out of one of them came forth a little horn, and this one was Seleucus. Okay, meaning out of his line came forth a little horn, which is Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes, which waxed, and Antiochus was not the direct son of Seleucus, he was a descendant, which waxed exceeding great. So he came up into power, he got a large army, and he started to conquer and take over. And primarily, he had a capital here, somewhere around this region, known as Antioch. Okay, so it says here, he waxed great toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land, which the pleasant land is the land of Israel. So he was conquering these different areas and subjecting the people of those areas under him. And it waxed great, which is Antiochus, even to the host of heaven, which because he became proud. And it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. So that the sum of the host and of the stars is talking about the Israelites, but more specifically, predominantly the southern kingdom, because at the time of the Grecian Empire, those that were dwelling here were the southern kingdom. The bulk of the northern kingdom at this time had already come to the Americas. So that's why it talks about how he cast down some of the host of the stars to the ground. Okay, and those stars being Israelites. So just a precept to back up the stars being Israelites. And also if you go to the book of Revelation, the 12th chapter, in the first verse it says, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars." And the woman represents Israel, and the 12 stars represent the 12 tribes. And to prove that, we're going to get one more precept in the book of Genesis. See 11 stars. There we go. Genesis 37 and 9. And this is a dream that Joseph had. And it says here, and he dreamed yet another dream, and told it his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him, and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth? So that's going to show you who the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars represented in Joseph's dream. And they were 11 stars because Joseph was the 12th. But we know that in process of time, you had Ephraim and Manasseh come up in there, and ultimately Joseph and Dan, took a back seat. So when you look at the 12 tribes today in Revelation, the 7th chapter, those are the 12 stars here. Okay. So now let's come back to Isaiah 14 and 13, right? So as it says here, continuing where we left off, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, which are the Israelites, meaning that in his mind, he's going to gain the dominion over us. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, which is also the Israelites, in the sides of the north. And in the sides of the north, when you look into the word sides, it goes into the uttermost part, the extreme parts, outskirts. So this north here is dealing with America, okay, North America. And him sitting upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north is him having us under subjection onto him here. Verse 14, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. So that's their thought. That's their the pride of their heart deceiving them. Verse 15, yet. So this is what they're thinking. This is their mindset. But as the scriptures are saying, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. So hell meaning in two conditions, right? Hell meaning a state of difficulty, okay, of distress, and also hell meaning the grave. So all in all, that's where Esau is going to be brought down. Okay, he's going to lose that position. Remember when we read, or in part 1, it talked about how art thou fallen from heaven, meaning that state of rulership and authority and dominion. So they're going to fall all the way down to hell, to being in a low state, to the sides of the pit. And I think in Isaiah either 20, 24, or one of those chapters, it talks about how we're actually going to put them in pits in the kingdom. Verse 16, they that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee. So when somebody narrowly looks upon you, meaning they're going to look down upon them. And consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? So it's going to be almost today, right? If you went to Africa, maybe Sudan or somewhere in Africa, and you saw the original inhabitants, or for example, you saw the descendants of, the ancient Egyptians or Ethiopians or so on and so forth, and the way that they're living now, it's almost hard to believe that these were the ones who at one point were the pharaohs and had this rulership over, they were basically the top dogs at one point, right? When you read about ancient Egyptian history and you look at how the descendants are living now, it's like, whoa, right? Like, oh, what? These were the people that were up there doing all this, that, and the third. So similarly, when Esau gets taken down, people are going to look down upon him as though, how did this creature right here, okay, this Lord of the Rings, my precious, that creature, that's what Esau going to be looking like. He's going to say, how did this guy make, the earth tremble and subject everybody under him? Verse 17, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof. And that's what they're doing, right? They're going around destroying things, conquering everything, and everywhere they go, they want to industrialize it and basically turn the world into a concrete jungle. It says that open not the house of his prisoners, which ultimately, who are his prisoners? His prisoners are the children of Israel, and he has kept us captive under him. All he has done is just changed the scenery of the captivity, but it's still the same. And that's why Yahushua is going to come back and and free us from this prison. Verse 18. All the kings of the nations, even all of them, lie in glory, everyone in his own house. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. Right? Meaning that ultimately, when you compare the state that Esau is going to be in, because take for example Revelation 20, I believe, right? It talks about how we're gonna have all these nations in subjection for 1,000 years, but afterwards they're gonna go back. They're gonna get their lands back, and they're gonna be subject onto us. But what's gonna happen to Esau Edom? Right? He's gonna be completely done away with. That's when the fulfillment of Obadiah 1 and 18. Okay, really the whole of it, but the main part about Esau being exterminated. That's when that's gonna come to pass in the kingdom. Okay, so his latter state, even in comparison to these other heathens, these other nations, they're going to be in a much better state than this devil, because he's going to get it the worst out of all of these heathens. And as it describes it, it says, thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, as the raiment of those that are slain. So imagine if you went back in time to the ancient world, and you went there maybe a day after the war. There was a major war, and you went there maybe a day after, and you're walking about and you're seeing the dead bodies of these soldiers and horses and so on and so forth. And you step on somebody's garment, you see the dirt, blood, and all that, like the raiment of those that are slain, right? Thrust through with a sword. So maybe they got some arrows in them. Their helmet is in one place, their arm is in another place. That go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land, and slain thy people. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. So what's going to ultimately happen is these devils are never going to be put back in any decent position, right? So ultimately, Babylon, for example, is going to be destroyed. Nobody's going to come and inhabit this land anymore. And it tells you that in I think it's Amos, the 9th chapter or so, on down, that we're going to possess Edom, which is going into their land. So their land is going to become ours. So they're not going to have anything, and they're not going to need it, because they ain't going to be here. Now, what's going to happen to their spirits afterwards? Yo no sé. We gotta watch and see. Verse 21, it says, or yo no sé, yo. Verse 21 says, prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. And that's what they're doing now. But this also goes to show you, speaks a little bit about the aspect of reincarnation, right? Because the children are their fathers coming back, like every 3 to 4 generations. And the scriptures tell you that you're not going to escape, right? It's a marvel if a sinner escaped unpunished. You may die in this lifetime, but it does not mean that you've escaped the judgment, because the next time you come, the Lord can get you anyway. Verse 22, for I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon, which Babylon is modern day America, the name and remnant and son and nephew, saith the Lord. And that's why this place is going to be utterly destroyed, never to be risen back up again. I will also make it a possession of the bittern and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord of hosts. So what's going to be the besom of destruction? Let's look into the word besom. See what we got on here. It's the mata ta. Interesting. Matata or matata, something along those lines. But it says here broom or besom. Okay, broom or besom. So That's why it says, I will sweep it with the besom of destruction. It says here, denominator of mud, clay, mire. Okay. Tayat. All right. So the besom of destruction, which is ultimately going to be the fire. All right, the fire. And I say the fire because we know what there are going to be two main aspects, at least that we know about, that are going to contribute to that fire, and that's going to be the nuclear missiles and the lasers from the chariots, from the Lord and the angels. Okay, and that's what's going to sweep. Is going to sweep this land, as it says, with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord. So you're just going to see, at least what the elect are going to see, is just that fire just sweeping all across and just burning this land. Verse 24, the Lord of hosts Yahweh hath sworn, saying, surely as I have thought, so shall it come to pass. And as I have purposed, so shall it stand. So what the Lord's decision or his words are, that's what's going to come to pass. And the scriptures tell you that the word of the Lord does not come back to him void. So his and the word of the Lord is in the scriptures. As a matter of fact, we're reading right now about some examples of it. And in here, it's talking about the destruction of this place. So we know it's going to happen, right? As it says, so shall it stand. There's nothing anyone or anything can do to change that. Verse 25, that I will break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread him underfoot. Then shall his yoke depart from off them, and his burden depart from off their shoulders. And this Assyrian that is talking about here is really referring to Esau. Okay, because when you read throughout the scriptures, America and sometimes just Esau is referred to as Babylon or Syria or Egypt or Sodom. Okay, I think even Nineveh. But as it says here, I will break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread him underfoot. Then shall his yoke depart from off them, and that yoke represents the burden of captivity. Okay, us being subject under them. Off them is the Israelites. So we're going to be freed from under this devil. And his burden shall depart from off their shoulders. So no longer are we going to have to work and basically be enslaved and be subject to these devils. Verse 26, this is the purpose that is purposed upon the whole earth. And this is the hand that is stretched out upon all the nations. So this is the Most High's intent. Okay, and this is what he is determined to do. Verse 27, for the Lord of hosts, Yahweh, hath purposed, and who shall disannul it? Right, dude. The Most High has said this. These are the Lord's intentions. Who is going to have the power to undo that, or to change it, or to make it null? Nobody. And his hand is stretched out, and who shall turn it back? In the year that King Ahaz died was this burden. So during that time was when Isaiah received his vision, which is thousands of years ago. Verse 29, rejoice not thou, whole Palestina, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. For out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and his fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent. Yeah, so as it's saying, rejoice thou not, whole Palestina, which is referring to the land over there of Israel. Okay, that east portion over there. And it says, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. So who is it that smote them? Ultimately, it's Esau. But as it's saying here, don't rejoice because Esau is going down, because you about to get, as it says in Ezekiel the 38th chapter, the Lord is going to bring Russia and the northern armies against them. And they're going to completely make that land desolate. And that's what it goes into here when it says, for out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, which a cockatrice, I believe, is a type of serpent or a snake. Let's confirm that. And that's Tazapai or Tazapai. It says poisonous serpent. So out of the serpent's root, which is that hole in the ground, shall come forth a cockatrice, which is that snake. And his fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent. So this is a metaphorical way of referring to the missile silos and the missiles that are going to come out of them. Okay, likened onto a cockatrice coming out of that root or coming out of that hole in the ground. And his fruit, meaning what's going to come out of it, shall be a fiery flying serpent, which is talking about those nuclear missiles. All right. Verse 30, and the firstborn of the poor shall feed, and the needy shall lie down in safety. So who is the poor and who is the needy? Ultimately, that represents Israel, because that's the state that we are in right now. So as it says, the firstborn of the poor shall feed, and the needy shall lie down in safety, which ultimately represents the Lord is going to take us out of this low state, starting with the elect, okay, and He's going to put us back in a good state. No longer are we going to hunger and thirst and go to our enemies for the want of all things anymore, or be afraid. We're ultimately going to get that rest. And I will kill thy root with famine, and he shall slay thy remnant. Okay, so ultimately, as it says, I will kill thy root with famine, which is one of the plagues that the Most High is going to use to destroy this place. And he shall slay thy remnant, that He is the Most High, shall slay thy remnant. Okay, and how is He going to do that? By means of all the destruction or the destructive means that have been mentioned in the verses above and in other precepts. Verse 31, howl, O gate, cry, O city, thou whole Palestina art dissolved. See, and that's why it says, rejoice not thou. So don't think that just because Esau or just because Babylon is being destroyed, everything is all good, right? It says, rejoice not, whole Palestina art dissolved. So what's going to cause that land to be dissolved? The nuclear missiles. And who's going to be a predominant catalyst in doing that? For there shall come from the north a smoke, and none shall be alone in his appointed times. And that's referring to the really starting with Russia, okay, and those northern armies. And real quick, let's go to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 38. And I just want to get to the point. Let's see. Yeah, this is Ezekiel 38 and 8. It says, after many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword. So this is talking about Russia. Okay, the Most High basically reviving and putting that warlike spirit back into Russia. And in the latter years, which we're in now, thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel. So they're gonna come against Israel, right? But it also applies to America, because America is also going to be targeted and hit by Russia. It says here, which have been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm, right? Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands, and many people with thee. And what are the bands? The armies. Okay, so now when you go back to Isaiah 14, as it says here, for there shall come from the north a smoke, which in Ezekiel 38 is referred to as a cloud, what else did a storm, but it's referring to the Russian armies. It says, and none shall be alone in his appointed times. What shall one then answer the messengers of the nation? That the Lord hath founded Zion, and the poor of his people shall trust in it. So ultimately, this is the judgment that's going to come. And as it says, not only upon Babylon, okay, but even upon that land of Palestine, okay, or modern day Israel, really that whole region there, okay, which is spoken of in Ezekiel the 38th chapter. As you keep on going, it goes into that. All right. So anyway, that was pretty much it. Yeah, that was pretty much it on Isaiah the 14th chapter. For time's sake, I had to break it up into two parts, but Lord willing, what I'll do is I'll try to put it together in a playlist, and any precepts or any breakdowns in the Isaiah, I'll put those together, and so on and so forth. So if you go to the playlist section, you should be able to find them videos there. But with that, Lord willing, this is edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha, Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.